Okay. Welcome back, everybody. We were just kind of reconnecting before we started our recording and talking about some questions from our students. And we'll talk a little bit about them today, which is fun. But it's already Tuesday, December 2nd today. Getting a little bit warm weather. It's icy in Anchorage. Um, Moving right through the end of the year. I did put the link to our slides in the chat so folks can follow along and study. And we have some fun homework exercises in there for you today. But yeah, just for our announcements, just want to welcome everybody back. Thank you for coming back to class. We have a small group so far today, three, so I'll probably send an email and remind everybody it's time to get back to class. We have a couple more weeks. But yeah, we'll talk about our remaining schedule and have a discussion, and then we'll get right into our formal self-introduction since we just have a couple weeks left. So for our remaining classes, we have this week and next week. So today's December 2nd, Thursday will be December 4th, and then next week we have December 9th, and December 11th will be our final class. Our goal for
And
the last,
it'll be a break time.
yeah, and then it'll be our break time before the next semester. Our goal will be to have everyone perform the knock knock dialogue we studied this year, including the formal self-introduction. And we would like people to use your notes. So please do take notes and use them. It's important to be learning the reading and writing. And so we encourage you to use your notes. So usually for this class, um, well, actually, before I jump into the next topic, were there any comments or questions about that? Don't be shy if something comes up. Um, and usually for this class, we take about a month off from mid-December to mid-January, and then we start back up with new topics. We're still waiting on approval for this class to happen in the spring. Just a matter of making sure the funding is there. But just to set our intentions for the spring, do you guys have topics or interests for the spring that you would like to learn about? They can be things like activities, spring harvesting. We like to do usually Elizabeth Peradovich Day and the Alaska Native Brotherhood, talking about history of Alaska. Um, some people like to learn different styles of conversation, talking about cooking and eating. We've done things in the past like remedies for being, if you're talking about someone who's sick. Of course, we don't want anyone to get sick, but talking about things that can help you feel better. Anything like that come to mind for you guys?
Yeah, I have something that I'm really interested in that I would like to learn about. It's
Uh-huh.
those small words that people use to connect sentences or phrases to each other. I've noticed in Lingit you have awe comes up all the time somehow. You hear it everywhere, and
Hmm.
I keep wondering, for instance, what this one means. When can you use it? When shouldn't you? And other similar words to that. Like I would imagine starting a sentence with, well, I want to this and that in English would start differently in Tlingit, for instance. Or, oh no, good job. Stuff like this. Small phrases, small words kind of help connect speech.
Okay. Awesome. That's a great one. I love it. Any other thoughts, topics, questions?
Suggestions. We try to work the plan, realizing that uh, some of you have taken uh, this study before, and being really patient with the rest of us as we work as beginners. So really appreciate that. And I always want to say thank you for helping us to keep the language alive, just we keep it working.
Yeah, oh wow. Well, on that note, and don't be shy, you guys, if you come up with other topics. You're not limited to right now to come up with it. I know I just brought it up, so if you think of other things before the end of class or after class, you can email me. But do let us know.
Hey,
Anybody
Nita Toga.
else? Uh-huh.
Yeah, this is Takle. Um, just one thing, one of the other language classes I've been taking or participating in, and Hodkill, they were te teaching things around ceremony, or they're like using ceremony practices to like teach and kind of encourage language. And I just didn't know if there was anything similar in Tlingit, like ceremonial practices and
Hmm. I like that. Can you say a little bit more about what kind of ceremonies or give us an example?
yeah. So for instance, there was they did a spruce cone ceremony. That was there's particular, like there was a script, like it's something that you say and you kind of like swipe the spruce cone across the person's mouth, and it's like a ceremony to encourage and to kind of empower like use of the language, for instance. So it's like kind of a ceremonial blessing of the person. I don't know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing
And
up,
that,
the the only language I heard was my own language. My parents talk, visitors and everybody. So that's all I knew. I mean, it's like a child born in America learns English and speak it all their friends in school and everything. And so that's what I knew uh, as I was growing up because that's what I heard. And nobody said, say this and say that. Not, no such thing. Um, I wasn't corrected or uh, I wasn't stressed with uh, the English words. The one that comes to mind right away is respect. That wasn't a word at all that I learned. They just taught us how to do it. Um, and we didn't even know the word. Uh, Hayaune is as something that was important to know, and that you don't really have to say it to people. You just do things to show that. Uh, and the other thing was, as a child, I had to attend Kankatida meetings, even at a very young age. I heard it's kind of amazing in those meetings where they really showed respect for each other in speaking and doing things. So that was another way I learned. So it was it wasn't uh, teaching anybody to say those words, and here's a ceremony you can do to uh, increase. We never do that in this class. We uh, introduce the words that we want you to learn and be able to respond to people from the villages. So I don't know if I'm making that clear, but no, there is no ceremony.
Mm.
Mm,
Prestige.
gosh, sheesh.
Yeah, sometimes Shirley and I talk about the differences in our generation because she grew up speaking Tlingit, um, and living in Tlingit culture. And for me, I grew up speaking English and living in American culture. And so it's like for her, she had to learn how to teach Tlingit to English speakers. And for me, I have to learn how to understand Tlingit so I can teach other English speakers. And so it's valuable to me, these conversations about like our perspectives and our roles. But yeah, goodness cheese, both of you.
I'm teaching her how to be a Tlingit.
Uh, hmm. Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Um, let's see.
I think it's pretty interesting the question that came up about ceremonies. How many languages are they teaching? Uh, is it to reclaim a language or what is it?
Yeah, I think that that specific ceremony was, I mean, I think it was related to the language revitalization of help,
Yeah,
helping people
yeah,
who weren't born, who weren't born as, speakers. Um, it was just, yeah, it was just interesting. And I think, like
yeah.
Nilatuka was, I mean, I think it, kind of generationally, like if you're a born speaker and grew up in it, it's different, kind of perspective than kind of people who were born, into English speaking communities, and are kind of now kind of taking back and, relearning and revitalizing languages to kind of keep them alive.
My father went to school, and the highest grade that they can teach is fourth grade. So that was the his whole education. So he missed out on going to Pennsylvania for school. So he decided he would teach himself, and his library consisted of an old Bible and first edition Webster Dictionary. Those are the two books he had,
Mm,
and they were always open together
mm,
as he studied from the beginning to the end. And by doing that, he raised his education from fourth grade to high school. When I graduated from high school, I came home to show off, and I started asking him. I would throw a word at him, and he would give me the Webster dictionary answer,
mm,
and he knew what the meaning was. So I kept giving him words, and he knew all of them. So he turned it around and given me words. I knew how what it meant, but I couldn't do much more than that. Uh, so it was amazing what he did for himself by that kind of a study. He became the magistrate uh, for the state before it became a state. So for the rest of his life, he was called judge. The people would come to the house and say, "Is the judge at home?"
mm,
And we were kind of used to, as kids, to hear him being called the judge.
mm,
And he used to hold court in the house. So as kids, we weren't allowed in the house at the time that he was doing these holdings.
oh, wow.
So, um, but I couldn't speak English when I was really young, and so before I went to school, I used to really study the comics, those strips of comics in the newspaper.
Mm,
I really worked hard on it. I looked at it and I kind of imagined what was going on. So he came home and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm reading." We were talking in Tlingit, and he said, "Can you read for me?" So I started uh, going over the strips of comics and uh, telling him in Tlingit what I thought they were saying, and he just fell apart laughing. So that's what I use for the class because that was such a funny thing that happened in my own life. So it turned out to be a pretty good one too. That was fun.
mm.
Yeah. You can imagine Blondie speaking Tlingit.
You translated into Singet to him?
Yeah, yeah. I just told it the whole story and Tlingit what I imagined they were saying, talking about.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Cute. That sounds fun. When you were talking about your dad reading the Bible with the Webster Dictionary, it kind of made me wish I've been reading Singet stories with the dictionary to improve my fluency, and it's something I've been thinking lately, but I just haven't made time to do it.
Um, when you read the stories in the collection by the Downhowers,
Hmm.
uh, I, at first I kind of thought I imagined it, but it's almost like poetry. you read one phrase at a time, and that's why they wrote it.
Mm,
You read one phrase at a time for the story.
mm,
So it wasn't a long, continuous story like we would do today.
mm,
Hardly get your breath to finish the story.
mhm,
But it was it's written it's written in both English and Tlingit, so it's quite an interesting study of the culture um, in regards to how we think and the stories that we had that we were kind of used to hearing.
mm,
So it's a good book.
mhm,
I I had to study it with Nora in a class, and my partner and we worked real hard to make sure we can pronounce the whole story.
mhm.
Then you get called on in class to stand up and read. You make a real big mess. So that was funny. Uh, then she was smart enough to make me sit down and read to her where I wasn't really stressed out in the classroom. But if you have an opportunity to study those stories, it really reveals a lot of cultural things if you look really closely. So
I
I
would
have to
like that.
admit that I didn't read all the stories, but I read a lot of them.
Mm.
Look up the certain stories to teach high school.
Oh. Did you have a favorite one that you would recommend?
Well, the one that's mentioned most often is and it's used quite a bit to show proof that oral history is not very good because it uh, the storyteller uh, the storyteller just uh, changes whatever it wants. And the examples they give is the story about Amy
Mm.
Marvin, and Susie Jones, I think her name was,
Mm.
told the same story about Glacier Bay,
Oh.
uh, and they told it different.
Mm.
But when it's like if you were telling the story about Cinderella,
Mm.
who would you include besides Cinderella in your story if you were writing one?
Well, I just remember all the birds and mice getting Cinderella dressed in her clothing from the movie.
Yeah, there must be thousands and thousands of versions.
Yeah.
Yeah, your version uh, better include Cinderella, her nasty sisters,
Mm.
stepsisters,
Mm.
mother-in-law or uh, not mother-in-law, but mother that was uh, scheming and cruel to her,
Mm.
and the prince, of course, and so uh, that's what happened with Amy and Susie. Those characters, the characters that were important in the story, were there.
Mm.
The surroundings and the way they described the whole thing
Mhm.
was up to them. It was different,
Mm.
and but the story was the same. It's about
Mm-hmm.
a granddaughter that was in isolation because she started ministrating, and uh, and what she did and to make the glaciers start galloping, and how the grandmother had to volunteer to stay behind. All that had to be the same and included, and it
Mm-hmm.
was in both Amy and Susie story.
Mm-hmm.
So oral history is, you have to realize, instead of looking with a critical eye, it's oral history is really important, no matter how many people tell it. Uh, Huna began to try to limit the story to be told only by her clan. And I told him, you're going to kill the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to disappear and nobody's going to know it because you're limiting and restricting too many rules for the story to be known. If it's not repeated, then it dies.
Mm-hmm.
So, but of course, they don't listen.
I'm listening. I love it. I love that you share
Yeah.
this with us.
Yeah.
Um, for folks in class, I'm just going to add a link to these stories that Shaksanikik is talking about. And this one, Glacier Bay, the history of Glacier Bay might be a fun one for us to study. But I did put a link here for you to download if you're curious, and so you know what it looks like in the books. This is the book Hashuka, and like she mentioned, there's a version told by Amy Marvin and another one by Susie James, Glacier Bay history. So this might be fun for us to study. And then in this other book, also by the Dowenhauers, there's a mention of this story, and I just kind of want to read it just since we're talking about this story. Um, and this one is in Hatuanaguyis. It says the place of this book in the series. The narratives in Hashuka introduce the concept of At'u and describe their acquisition by ancestors. The present volume expands the concept with emphasis on spirits as At'u. The oratory shows At'u in action in their full spiritual context, especially in the employment of At'u in ceremonial use for healing, the removal of grief, and the prevention of harm. The narratives in Ha-Shuka recall the fundamental covenants between humans and animals, the physical and the spiritual, and the symbolic representation of these covenants through At'u. Oratory operates within this system of At'u, kinship and exchange, in the words of the orators, imitating our ancestors. Ritual is an enactment of myth. Thus, the speeches delivered in the context of a ceremony for the removal of grief are ritual enactments of myth as recalled in the narratives. For example, the Glacier Bay History by Amy Marvin in Hashuka explains the spiritual foundation for remembering the departed in memorials characterized by the giving of gifts of food and clothing. The memorial is the context in which the most significant Thingya oratory is delivered. Just as the narratives explain the mythic covenants underlying the spirituality of the culture, oratory is the genre of memorial and ritual and operates against the spiritual background explained in the narratives. So that's fun little preview about us about this story. But yeah, goodness, geez, Shirley for sharing. Did anyone have thoughts or questions about this?
The story about the galloping glaciers
Mm.
is a real one. It turns out what happened was all of the glaciers galloped, all of them.
Mm.
They got forced, Clinkets got forced out of Southeast completely,
Mm.
covered with ice. I kept asking my dad, I said, where did you go? I don't know. I think we were down by the big trees. So for quite a few years, the Clinkets had to live in California.
Mm.
And until they could return to Southeast. They never gave up on it.
Yeah, one thought and a semi-question and then a question for me on all that. Um, so my thought is those must be very, very old stories. And I'm just wondering how old they are. That's the semi-question I have. And
Mm.
the real question would be, is there any recording of these stories? So I would love to read them in the original and listen to somebody speaking them at the same time, just to hear how there is a certain way people tell stories, and there is a certain rhythm to it, and the voice goes up, it goes faster, it goes slower, and all of that. I would like to experience that. Is there anything you could recommend for that?
Uh, uh, Tlingit language, TlinkitLanguage.com.
Mm.
I think some of those stories are read or told. Uh, do you think Lance has that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he does. And I'm just opening up his website to check. Um, Only thing I'm wondering is we might need to ask him to update these links because on clinkitlanguage.com he has audio recordings. And you can scroll down and some of them are stories from Hatuanaguyis. Other ones are recorded stories. But some of these links work and some need to be updated. So here he has a section under the Downhauer collection, Hashuka. So these are all stories from Hashuka. Here's Tagka, the Mosquito by Robert Zuboff, which is super fun because you can read along in Hashuka and listen to Robert Zuboff tell that story, which is awesome. Let's see if this one, Amy Marvin.
Okay. Ah, ya itet ate konesh ka kwasnikia ya ikiye. Ha, shukwanach ate yu hakuti ikiye ya tleshape. Ate yu hakoti ya. Ha huta khaya ya shakatsko chukwanite. Ya it's kwaya ausiwat. Yitu wasakya o shortcut ya usaj it's atiyo eto wasakya yekuchike hina hukat kanasinch. Aya akwat aya te tunak yutu kutie te ausine rashat katskoch. Aya te ataya khanich. تأجقناقي أوياك ساتين تأجقناقو تين سكريت هل ناسيتين يكوتكو هل ناسيتين يكوتكو كتكيكو ساتيس شكرا.
So that's fun. It looks like there's a recording of maybe Marvin telling this story.
Like, geez,
Oh,
that's wonderful, really.
okay. So it'd be fun. So it'd be fun to study, like Shirley was mentioning, line by line, if we wanted to study a story. Um, Shirley, how do you feel about our time? We have 15 minutes left.
Oh,
I really, yeah, I really
are
like
there
this.
any questions or comments about the recordings, about doing your homework for learning how to introduce yourself?
And just in case I haven't shown you guys yet, I did make homework for you in these slides. So I want everyone to practice your formal self-introduction. And this is how it looks, the way Shirley and I teach. We picked these lines specifically so that you have to make Lingit sounds. And also you can change up the rhythm and the melody of your self-introduction instead of saying um, yeah for each line. There's different ways to say I am or I belong to this clan. Um, and then their homework is to practice. So we have a line, our first line, in English, I am called, and you put your name in the blank. And then I made an audio link so you can click it and hit play. So that's how you guys can study at home. Um, any questions or comments so far? You're probably like, teach it to me. If you guys don't have any questions or comments, then let's practice a few of these so you can practice at home. And I can't remember if we did these. Can I see a show of hands? Does anyone here already know your formal self-introduction? Okay, Tashier has her hand up. Anyone else? Tish. And Tashier, we looked over the expanded version that you emailed us and we liked it. We really liked the way it sounds and what you chose to say. And then that's good for like when you mentioned you're about to give a presentation. Um, and then for the knock knock dialogue, we'll just ask you to keep your introduction to these simple lines just so it will fit in the context. But we did like what you sent us for your presentation. So let's do the first line. So the whole thing goes in English, I am called, and you share your name. And then in Tlingit or another native language, if you have another native language, I am called and your name. Then you say your clan, which is your mother's clan. That can also be your nationality or your heritage. Um, this next line is optional. If you know your clan house, that's optional. And then you lift up your father's people by this next one, Yadi, and then where you live. So that's just a brief overview, but let's practice each line.
Because we're matrilineal, we start with the mother, and that's whatever clan or tribe or nationality your mother is. you identify as your mother's heritage. That's why we go with the mother first, and then later on you say, "I'm a child of so and so," so we give that information.
Hmm.
So that's why we put the mother first, because we're uh, matrilineal.
Hmm.
It's important. Gonna teach.
Yeah. So let's practice our first line. This is your English name. I know we did this before the break, but it's been a week now, so let's practice and you can fill in the blank with your English name. But repeat after me. Tleitchach Anna Yuchat Duasak.
Okay. Well, Ena, Michael, Yuchat, Tuasak,
Okay. And the next one, Lingit Class Nila Torah Yuchat Duasak.
Lingit, Ena, Tapuni, Hande, Ijin, Yuchat, Tuasak,
Okay. So next one is your mother's. I wrote clan or nationality. My mom is white American, but her ancestors were from northern Germany. So you can fill in the blank on how you identify. If I identify as a white woman, I might say Tleit Shawat or yeah, Tleit Shawat Chet City. I'm a white woman. If I wanna lift up my mother's people as like where they're originally from, their German nationality, I might say German nach City, just saying German in a Singhet pronunciation. But this one is all about your mother's people, so honoring who they are, that we wouldn't exist without them. Um, try to speak respectfully about your mother's people. But that's what this line is about. So, uh, you guys, if you're ready to fill in the blank with your mother's people, you can. And then this part nach het city. So repeat after me. Jamin nach het city.
German, nach, Kat, City,
Okay. And then this next line is optional for people who are of Tlingit heritage if you know your clan house. And is that anybody in here has their clan house name that they want to practice? Okay, we'll skip that one, but I do have an audio.
Gushi hit
Yeah, okay. So let's do an example from Kadukwe, who is from Keet Gushi Hit. So this would be an example where you write um, your clan name. I'm just writing it in. And then the word hit means house, and then dach means from. So the word order in Tlingit would be house from, meaning you're from that house. But let's practice this one for fun. Everyone can go ahead and repeat after me. Kit gushi hit dach.
Heat Gushi
Eat,
hit dach.
Ushi, Hit, Dach,
Okay. Anybody else want to practice their house name? And then the next line is about honoring our father's people. And in Tlingit, you say that you're the child of them. So this implies your father's clan. And my dad is Koyukon Athabaskan, so this is where I would use the Tlingit term Konana for Athabaskan. And I would say Konana Yedi Ayechet. But go ahead and fill in the blank with your father's people and repeat after me. Konana Yedi Ayechet.
German, Yadi, Ayachat,
Okay. And then the last one is where you're living. So um, you start with a town name and then you add this pinched X sound at the end of the town name. And that lets you know that you're at that place. In English, we say in if we're talking about a city and sing it, but that's what this pinched X is. And you just add it to the town name. So this can be kind of fun, depending on the city that you live in and what it's called. Might be doing a little bit of mixing languages here if your town name has an English name. Anchorage happens to be, I'm going to write it as an example, but Anchorage in Tlingit pronunciation would be Anchich, and that would be, it would sound like Anchich Yechatiati, and that's where I live. But let's practice this one and then we'll do your town name. So you just add this pinched X to the sound to the word Anchich and repeat after me. Anchich Yechatiati.
Ranchich Yechatiati.
Okay.
Supposed to change that to wherever you are.
Yeah, so let's do it with your town names. Um, and repeat after me using your town name. Anchich Yechatiati.
Munich Yechatiati.
Mm.
I messed up a
Okay.
little there. Munich.
Munich. So if we try to do Munich, um,
Add the X,
add
pinched
the
X.
X.
Yeah.
Okay. Munich. And this is like a K sound, but you got to do a pinched X at the end, um, which is fun. You just have to be patient and just enjoy that it's hard because it's a K, and then you're gonna do those right next to each other. And let's practice this one. Repeat after me. Munich Yechatiati.
Munich Yechatiati.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The sound came out. That's good.
Okay.
Maltese.
Yeah.
Ah. And then someone put in the chat they want to try North Pole. And this can be done in English. You can just write the English name. We can also look up the indigenous name if there is one. Um, so let's try it with the English name North Pole. Repeat after me. North Pole. Yechatiati.
North Pole Yechatiati.
Okay. North Pole is in
Yeah. Sometimes the students has had to use the English name, but then if the community makes a correction, then they change it. So you know it both ways. You can have a choice. At this, what this gives you is a choice. You can use either one. So it's good practice.
Mm, okay.
Do you have time to uh, go through the whole thing without say it after me? Just have them hear the whole thing.
Ah, yeah, let's do that. So let me just make sure I have.
Because I want you to find out that it's actually quite a short. I think it only takes like 30 seconds to do the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I've been doing a lot of build up. I don't want you guys to be nervous, but we do have time. So I'll just demonstrate to you all mine, and then you can see what that sounds like. So the whole thing would go knock knock. Adu sowa nila tora aya ashayi ires hat khwasi in ach tlach wusi I gwanalchish guk tlak at tucha ha'in adchakusha skunda yan chagot adeya kanda hit Gaan kaninik dasa I idul tu has tu itchwa dashi waku at latuwo. Leit kachinach ana yuchatu asaku. Lingit Class nila toga yuchatu asaku. Jama nach chet siti gona na yadi ayechat anchich yechat yati. And that's it. Can I get a round of applause? I'm just kidding.
Take a bow.
Taking a bow. I'm just kidding. Any questions or comments?
It always seems longer like at potlatches or stuff like that when people introduce themselves.
Yeah. I wonder if they're adding other lines about their in-laws or their grandparents.
Yeah, that's by choice. We don't teach that part here, but you can add that if you wish to talk about your grandparents, um, because there is uh, information out there for you to use. But what you heard is what we teach in the class, and that's good for a beginner to be able to do in public.
Yeah, and I'm just looking for if there are people who are curious about the other lines you can add. Um, in the beginning Lingit workbook, there's the formal self-introduction. 74. So this page in Renee's book has more lines if you want to add your grandparents and stuff. But that's not required for this class, but if you are curious and you want to practice, this is a resource you can use. Any other comments or questions before we go?
It might be good to know that kind of information for informal, because the person you're talking to could be more curious and you need more information to give. So, so it is good to know. We're doing the formal introduction, but there's a lot of people. It's where you're pressed for time and you have to meet somebody and they introduce you to individually to somebody. They start asking you questions. So that'll be different.
Mhm. Okay. Goodness, geez. Well, thank you guys for coming today. First day back after our long break. And we look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. So have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you in a couple days. Goodness, cheese.
Like, geez.
Oh,
It is cheese.
Yeah.